Welcome, everybody, to Lee's podcast. I'm your host, Lee Yang. Well, I'm not sure if any of you know, but this month is Autism Awareness Month, and I have a special guest with me today. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Nhia. Nhia. I am a wife and a mother of three with one child that is autistic.
And I'm glad you're willing to come in and share with me in regards to your experience.
Yeah.
Because I know in our Hmong community, right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you know best, is that autism or even anything that has to do with a cognitive disability
Mm-hmm.
is kind of looked at a little different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think so. I think we tend to just look past it and think that it's something that we'll get over or get through. And I feel like any type of mental health is also looked at the same way.
Yeah, and I don't think in our community, and I'm hoping to have a different podcast or another podcast to talk specifically about mental health. But so let's define autism.
So, I mean, there's not really a definition of autism. I mean, the thing is, like, the good thing that we do know as parents that have children that are autistic and people that are autistic, it is a spectrum. So it is definitely, it varies from how signs, but it is something that is, so it's something in the brain. But there's just so many things that you can see signs for that would class itself into autism. I mean, a person can be completely high functioning, live day to day, and you'll never know that they were autistic. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just, because I used to, and I share this with you, I used to work at lacrosse, children's social work, as a children's social worker, and so it was new to me, to be honest, to learn about autism. Obviously, we deal with kids with disability, and so autism was just one of them. But to learn that autism is a spectrum, which means you have low functioning,
Mm-hmm.
who maybe can't talk as well, and you have higher functioning, like what you said. And amazingly, I'm not sure if you know, but there's a lot of smart people out there.
Oh, yeah.
Historically, a lot of smart people out there
Definitely.
that people are assuming that might have some form of autism,
Mm-hmm.
right? So anyway, so that's what autism is. It's a spectrum. And where does your son fall within that spectrum?
My son is diagnosed with mild to moderate, which is the low end. He is nonverbal, considered nonverbal. But when he was diagnosed with mild to moderate autism with intellectual disability is what the diagnosis was when we actually got it. So it was many steps to get to where we were, where he was officially diagnosed with it. So that's where he is.
So let's talk about those steps.
Sure.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know?
So, I mean, like, as a baby, he was hitting those milestones as he should. And we didn't see any signs. He was hitting the growth rate, doing things, crawling, walking, babbling, doing everything that he was supposed to do, hitting those milestones. About, I want to say, right before he hit 1 year old, we realized that we noticed that his speech was delayed. So he was saying a few words, and then all of a sudden he wasn't saying those words that he was saying. So, we mentioned it to the pediatrician, and she said, well, it looks like he might be a little speech delayed because he's hitting on his milestones. So, we were going to look into this and then possibly get him into speech. So we're like, okay. So a little bit later on, we started to just notice little things that just didn't quite add up. He was flapping his hands when he was excited, and that's one sign.
Yep.
And it's true that toddlers that flap their hands doesn't necessarily mean that they're autistic, but those are some signs for some children. So we noticed that, and then we also noticed he wasn't answering to his name. So that was one of the biggest signs, was that. And then the pediatrician right away was, okay, let's do his screening, his 18-month screening. And he was kind of borderline. Mm-hmm. So he was doing other things that would cancel out what they would thought he would be autistic. So very smart in some ways. So they're like, okay, so he's doing this, but he's not doing this. So we can't really say that he's autistic because he's doing this. So they suggested that we get him professionally diagnosed. So we did that. About 2 years old is when we started the journey of getting him diagnosed.
How does that work? Because I know from my experience working at La Crosse, of how they diagnose kids. Mm-hmm. It's not your medical doctor that does it, correct?
No, it wasn't his pediatrician. They have assessments that they do, which is like a checkoff list, and it's basically like, is he hitting these? Is your child hitting these milestones? And if there's something that is like red flags, then they would say, okay, it looks like your child is, having these check boxes for maybe having autism. So what we're going to do is now we're going to refer you out to a specialist that can. So psychologists, neurosciences, they would do it for you. So then that's what they do. They recommend it out, and then they just source it out, and then we take the next step of making those appointments and getting them assessed.
And it's a test, right? Is it a test, or do they sit and talk to him?
So
do they play with him?
Yeah.
Kind of everything.
So it's not a test. The assessment is basically play-based. And then they just do a number of different things with your child. So playing patty cake, can you mimic me? When I introduce a toy, usually when you introduce a toy to a child, they usually look for that, like, reinforcement from the parents, like, oh, can I play with this? A lot of times children that has autism, they go at it. They don't recognize or look for that approval. They go at it. So there's a number of things. We went to a clinic. We saw multiple people, and a lot of his tests came back inconclusive. So
it did?
Yes. So this is where our frustration came in. So he was probably 2.5 now. And then I started to see a lot more signs. And then I, of course, being that worried mom, Googling until 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Just child banging on window, child playing with toys incorrectly, just looking at stuff like that.
Those are just some of the signs you saw.
Some of the signs, yeah. So he would like bang on the window and kind of howl, but he wasn't like talking, but he was just howling. And then he likes things that spins. That was his number one thing. And a lot of children that is autistic, they love things that spin. It's just the stimming of it. And he would, on his like writing toys, instead of writing them, he'll flip them over and just play with the wheel, kind of thing. So we went, after they had us do the assessments with them, it came back as, okay, there might be signs that he's autistic, but right now we're kind of unsure. So what we're going to do is we're going to start giving you services. But the fact that he is nonverbal and he's not talking, we won't be able to give you speech right now. So then we're going to start you on a program. So they started us on a program that we did. It was in home. Here they call it Birth to 3, and that's what we started with.
Okay, so I was going to ask, was this the Birth to 3 program?
Yes.
And so he was 2 at this time.
Yeah, so he was 2, almost 3 is when he started Birth to 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Birth to 3 will allow you to get some service, but not completely, as if it limited. Was Children's Waiver, which is you're doing in-home therapy, and we can talk about that in a little bit. Mm-hmm. So let's go back a little bit. Sure. I know there's some of the signs, and I kind of want to paint a broader picture and kind of list some of the signs that maybe I know, and obviously from your own experience. I know when I was working at La Crosse, and again, it's not just one, like what you said earlier, it's not one sign that says, oh, now you're autistic. It's multiple things. Mm-hmm. I think there's a social aspect of it, right? Playing with kids, playing next to them, playing with them, playing with toys. Yes. And that's what they did with you, with your son. Physically, what he's doing, vocally, socially. I know kids that walk on their tiptoes. Mm-hmm. Your son didn't do that, did he?
He didn't start doing that until later on.
Okay.
So that was something that we saw later. Like he was already diagnosed when we saw that. Yeah.
Okay. Is he potty trained?
He is potty trained. I mean, he's not 100%. We are in the process of learning how to wipe. Okay. So, and then, for a 7-year-old, he's 7 now. it's been he gets it, but he's not getting the full concept. So I mean, right now they would say that he is potty trained and he's been in underwear and not have accidents, I should say, probably since he was 4.
Oh, good.
So yeah, we actually did that, which is great there hasn't been any regression, which is something that we're very thankful for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he speaking more now?
He is speaking a lot more now. I feel like speech at school is what he received. They did a tremendous job.
So he has an IEP at school then?
He does have an IEP at school. He's speaking a lot more now, and a lot of it is in his words, his tone. If you were to speak to him, you probably wouldn't be able to understand him because of how he speaks. But, I'm his mother. I see him every day. I talk to him every day. I know what he wants. But he's able to sound out words. He's able to read. He does that, but he's still considered nonverbal because he's not initiating conversation.
I see.
Yes.
Has he learned? And I'm asking a lot of questions because these are questions that obviously this social worker mind of mine back in the day would ask, right?
Too, yes.
So does he do sign? Have you guys taught him how to do sign language?
So they started sign language in school when he started. So after the Birth to 3 program that he did, it was in-home base. A teacher came in, kind of did simple stuff with him, like, put all the red balls in this bowl, stack these up, knock it over kind of situation. Here's where's the ball, where's this. That's kind of how that program went. And then when he turned 3, we got out of Birth to 3, and then he started school. So he went to early development at the elementary school he's at now. He had a great team. And he started when he was 3. He turned 3 in January. So they let him start school right away. So he had that extra 6 months ahead.
Oh, good, yeah.
And then he started the same grade in September. So they gave him that little, few months ahead, kind of head start kind of situation for him. And so that was really helpful, I believe. And there at school, he had the services that his teachers provided him, and then he did speech. So there was only 2 services that we were receiving from the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I know we're kind of jumping all over the place because I have so many questions for you. It's been a while since I've spoken to someone.
But I kind of want to, to get us there to where we are at school now.
Okay.
How we got to school, and then if anyone was looking for that kind of information to get their foot in, that the Birth to 3 program was a way to get them into the right school, to have that particular early development, special education program that they need to be in, because I felt like that really helped them being in a small class with students of his peers, and them able to hone in knowing that he has intellectual disability as well, that they're able to help him in the way they could, because that's their specialty.
Okay.
Yeah, instead of general ed.
All right. And, and for me to say jumping around, that's more my part as a host.
No.
I need to make sure I kind of keep things kind of organized for you.
Oh, yeah. And I'm good with that because I do that as well. So I think this is going to be great. Yeah.
But the Birth to 3, for those that are listening, right?
Yes.
For those that are listening and you have a child who you might be suspicious, Birth to 3 would be until they're 3 years old, would be the first program that they would seek some kind of service. And is a public program that's free, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes. It was a program that is free, that you will need to get some sort of recommendation, referral, or diagnose to get the program for your child. However, that is just basically like he was not diagnosed, but he got the service. So at that time. So yeah, if you're seeking anything to kind of just get a jump start on it, I think that, talking to your pediatrician or talking to whoever saying, hey, I really want to see what we can, that's something they will probably offer right away is the Birth to 3 program, because early intervention is probably the best way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Birth to 3, how did you approach Birth to 3? Because did you call 211? Did you call the county? How did you get a hold of Birth to 3? Is it through your social worker, through the school? How does that work so that parents that are listening would know which avenue to take to get to Birth to 3?
Yeah. So what we did was the clinic that was doing the assessment recommended Birth to 3. So then they sent our information, and then Birth to 3 contacted me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then they just reached out saying, hey, we got this referral, because it was a referral. And then that's how our situation, that's how our journey started, is from there on when they made the first initial contact with us.
Okay. And I know that's what happened to you guys. But for other people, if
It
they
could vary.
It varies,
Yes,
correct. And
yes.
whoever listening, if you're in the area that you're in has a 211 for whatever county that you're listening to, because I know Mater, my wife used to work in Milwaukee County. You call 211 or you call the county, and then the county, they would kind of steer you towards whatever program that would be best, and then you can contact them yourself. So,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Did you want to? I was thinking to myself, since we're in this topic right now,
Sure.
in the initial beginning of finding out where your son was at and getting programs and getting service for him, first let me ask, how did you feel about it when you found out?
Oh God, like I am gonna get emotional about this. So, I mean, any parent, I was in denial, totally denial. Like, I see signs, I hear it, they're saying it, and I'm like,
who is saying it? Like other,
like just professionals.
Okay.
They're saying like, there's a possibility. There's this. There's he's showing this. He's doing this, and then. And of course, I found it looking up Google in the middle of the night and thinking, okay, so then I dug myself into a black hole of autism. Like, okay, so there's so many signs that I'm seeing that are that autism is listing. So of course, I'm like, no, because he's doing this. Like, yes, he's doing this. Like he is kind of pointing, and that's one of the things that some of the autistic students, they don't do it. They don't point to what they need. So I'm like, oh, he's doing that. Or, yeah, he was talking, so maybe he just needs speech. Or, he's so smart. He's doing this. Oh, look, he can do that. So it was like, okay, I'm in denial. I'm saying yes, but I'm also saying not me, right? Not my baby. So that's how I felt in the beginning. Initially, like when we first started our journey. And, my husband was supportive of how I was feeling. He also had his, reservations. Of course, as a parent, you're just like, same thing. He's fine. He's just a little delayed, he's just a little delayed. He's fine. That's kind of how we were the first few months of it, until we came to the realization that something is different. Yeah. Not wrong, just different. Yeah.
I'm glad you said it that way.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing wrong with him.
There's nothing wrong with autistic people at all. They just see the world differently. That's it.
Perfect. And I'm glad it's coming. I can say that.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it came from a parent.
Yeah.
Because that is perfect. Because what we try to do, at least when I was, is try to stigmatize these kids, right? And then all of a sudden they're the problem.
Yes.
Which they're not.
Yes.
They are who they are.
Yes.
Your husband feels okay about it now.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think him and I were always on the same page, but I think he's even if he thought anything different, more like our son is autistic, I was in denial and he was supportive of how I was feeling. But once I kind of got out of that, we were both open, and then because when my son was officially diagnosed, I cried and I said, and this is where I know that he was just 100% supportive of what I was going through. And I said, I was reading the diagnose, and then I said, well, it's here, black and white, he is mild to moderate, autism. And he said, but we knew that. Yeah, but you knew that. Like, so take it in. It's okay to feel that way, but take it in. And then let's give us a little time to just let it sink in. And then we need to move forward and see what we're going to do and how we're going to help him be the best version of him. And that stuck with me because I'm like, wow, like you're super supportive of how I'm feeling, and you don't want to make me feel like I'm not being validated, that my feelings are not being validated. However, if I was to not be 100% and still be in denial, he would have stepped in and said, no, this is it right here. You need to accept this, and we need to do something now. So that was, it was hard to hear. Of course, you never want to hear that. You never want to hear that that life is going to be a little rocky for your child, not bad or not livable, but just a little rocky in the beginning, just before they can, really know how they want to live and how they should, want to be out there. And so I was just, in shock, very overwhelmed, very emotional, because I'm just an emotional person, very emotional. And then at that time when we got the full diagnose, he was already in school.
What grade was he?
He was in K3. We started the journey of getting him diagnosed at about 2. We didn't fully get his full diagnosis until he was almost 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got the diagnosis like December, and then, he turned 4 in January. So he was in school.
I wonder if that time, like from 2 to 4 or 3 to 4, allows maybe the assessors or allow him to develop, or maybe see if he hits any additional milestone. So that would be more certain, or what took him so long just to diagnose him?
It was just when I think it's just where we went.
Okay.
Like, I think it's just, how in any profession and everyone, they do things just a little different. And I feel like he was showing some signs and then not showing this. They're like, okay, so we're going to focus on this. We're going to focus on this. And especially a person that didn't have any kind of education on it, me, didn't know anything about it, was just saying, yes, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we're going to go speech. And also being a person that was in denial, saying, yeah, we're not going to work on this autism part. But we know he's not talking, so let's just work on speech. Let's do that. And it's easy for me to say that because, I'm in denial. So I'm like, no, I'm not accepting that my child is autistic. We're going to just veer away from that. He's not showing signs, not enough signs, so we're not going to say he is, but let's work on speech. So let's focus on that. And I think that might have had a lot to do with it too.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I don't know if if the place was like, let's do, because they ran every test, so I really don't know exactly like what happened those 2 years. And then when he was in the Birth to 3 program, we didn't have anything else done. I had to get the second opinion, and that's why we went to see this doctor.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's like, maybe you should, I was thinking like, okay, he's not getting like any better, like his speech is not getting better. He started to be, he's starting to have behavior issues that we were seeing, and he started to hit and started to hit walls, hit windows, break things, break his toys, break his tablet, all of that stuff. So it was like, okay, this behavior is just not something that we're used to. We don't know what's going on. So then, we talked to his pediatrician, and then they suggested that we should get a second opinion. So that they recommended his Dr. Coop from Children's Hospital.
Okay.
And then we got a second opinion from her. They did the assessment, and then she diagnosed him that day.
That day?
That day.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That day, she said, I haven't officially wrote down the report, but it looks like, your child has autism and some form of intellectual disability. And it was like, wow. And she's like, yeah, everything. I could see all the signs that, I needed to see to make a formal diagnosis, even though he's not doing everything, which children don't show all signs of autism, that spectrum thing. So she diagnosed him that day.
And so let's touch upon the other opinion of what you're feeling, which is obviously you were in denial until you figure out, okay, I'm going to accept this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep the whole denial concept, the whole denial conversation going, because there are parents out there.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you spoke to parents or heard of parents. I know of some myself that obviously I don't know. We're not clinicians.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the tests. Mm-hmm. We just know what we know from you, obviously from your own experience having a child, from my own experience of working with kids with autism. And, what I hate to do is I hate to diagnose a child, but there's signs that I see, and I'm like, hey, you might want to get him or her tested.
Yeah.
What do you say to parents that are kind of refusing to do that?
That's the best way to approach it, is not tell them that their child is autistic or their child has a disability in any form. Like in my case, I I talk about my child's journey, our journey, but I don't ever force it on a parent to say, hey, you need to take them to get tested, or I'm seeing these signs. I feel like it's a very touchy situation, very touchy topic when you talk about someone's children. But and I think the safest way to say it is, do you feel that there are signs to the parent? Like, do you notice something about your child that you feel? And a lot of times they're like, well, yeah, he's not talking, or he's not making eye contact with me. I'm like, maybe you should talk to your pediatrician. And that's the best way to do it. Have them talk to their pediatrician, tell them your concerns, and then let your pediatrician tell them what they need to do, because they're the professional at this, to say, hey, these are signs of this, so it won't hurt to get them tested. If they are, then we know, and if they're not, then we know. And I think that's the best way to do it, because a lot of parents are just in denial, and they just say, oh, there's something wrong with my child.
Yeah, they're just delayed, or they'll be okay.
Yeah, they'll be okay.
Now here's the other here's the other point. In our culture, right? There are those that are
Yes.
and they don't see the modern medicine as something that's helpful, so they go to the spiritual healing or remedy to help the child. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever they do. I don't do it. Obviously, I don't know, but they try to do that, hoping to correct or to fix whatever behavior or problem that child has.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I just think that that's kind of counterproductive. When you have modern medicine, you have researchers.
Yeah, we have the science
behind it.
Up.
Yeah,
the science.
So I've seen it, and to me, I find it somewhat frustrating. But at the end of the day, it's not my child. And you said it perfectly. Is that it's very sensitive.
It is. It's very sensitive. I mean, someone was to come to me and say something to me, I would be offended.
Yeah.
And I will probably lash back, because I'm like, no, you can't say that to me. You can't talk about my child. I'm not talking about your child. Don't talk about my child. The mama bear comes out. Like, yeah, you don't see that. I'm not seeing that. How are you seeing that? Yeah, of course, you don't want to have those tough conversations. So it's very sensitive, and we doing, being shaman about it, and doing whatnang to fix the situation that could be is something that that's their religion. That's their religion, and that's something that they feel that needs to happen. I mean, then they'll do it, but I don't know if it'll fix it, because
correct.
Yeah, because it is, and that's where it's really hard to explain that, like, oh, your child's not speaking, and then, oh, let's do this and see if there's something holding them back from being able to speak. And then after you do that, it still doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there could be things, culturally, that religion, there's a lot of things that you see that, has worked, and some that hasn't. So it's just what you believe in, and how you want to believe in it. But so yeah, I've seen and I've heard, like, oh, you just do a big thing to call and see if that does it. It's like, okay, like, do what? Like, what does that do? And if we do it and it doesn't work, then on to the next. Like, I'm not gonna dwell on it. Like, I'm not gonna say, okay, so what else should I do? Like, okay, so I need to do something now, because the child needs some kind of intervention.
Yeah.
To help them grow, and be the best version of them. So whatever that may be. Yeah.
And I think you said it perfectly, because again, going back to my experience, there's 3 words that I always hear whenever I work with parents, especially new parents or parents that have not had a child with autism. And those 3 words are intervention, intervention, intervention.
Yes.
Right? So those are I know there's the same words, but it's repeated 3 times, at least when I was working, is that intervention is key to get services as quickly as possible. Yes. To kind of help promote certain behavior, or to prevent certain behaviors, and to promote positive behaviors, So, but going back to, birth to 3, what happens? Obviously, he's not in birthday 3 anymore.
No. So then after his third birthday, then we were let go of the program, and then he was just doing school. So at the initial diagnose, they recommended for us to seek ABA therapy, which is applied behavior analysis therapy, for him, that he would do well with that and take to that therapy, and that would help him kind of cope and help him understand his brain a little bit more, because sometimes it's going 1,000 miles an hour and he can't get that out especially because he's not speaking. So that was one of the things that they had recommended. So that was our next step, was looking for ABA therapy for him.
Okay. I'm assuming you had to go through the process of applying for children's waiver.
It's been a horrible process.
Because that's the process I was involved in. So
yeah.
So
and you know how hard that is, right? So
I do. Trust me, I do.
Okay, so he was diagnosed at 4. My son is now 7. So when we first applied for the waiver, I don't even know what happened. I'm a person where, because I don't exactly know what it is all about, I'm quick to say, okay, well, then I don't need that. So when I called to get that service, which is the CLST waiver, which is children's long-term service
Correct.
waiver, right? So I talked to the person that answered the phone, and I explained to them, like, hey, I got referred to request this service for my child that has been diagnosed with autism. And he said, well, yeah, for the service is usually for, like, if you need a handicap ramp, is your child in a wheelchair? And I said, no, he's not in a wheelchair. Like, do you need like bars for the shower if they can't get in and out of the shower? That kind of thing. Like, we would do like ramps, and then we'll offer rides. That's kind of what the waiver most of the time is for. So I said, well, I don't need that because he's capable. So why would I use this service? And why would I get the service, not use it? So I'm like, okay, well, then let me verify with his pediatrician. See, because she was highly recommending this, waiver program, and his psychiatrist that diagnosed them was like, yeah, you need to get this. This is what you need. And it's written everywhere. So he goes, yeah. So I contacted them, and she's like, no, that's not right. And I'm like, well, I don't know. So she was like, okay, you need to call back. I called back, and it kind of got the runaround. So it's been a horrible process. So we actually stopped. Like, I stopped calling. I stopped trying to get that service because I'm like, well, they keep saying that it's just for this. So I don't know. So we also started to look for ABA, and a lot of the places locally. And this is where early intervention is so crucial to get these services, okay? My son is 4 years old. A lot of the places that are taking ABA, my child is too old.
Wow.
They wanted services at 2 because they want to get in and get them out of services. They're hoping to get them out of services before they start school. So it doesn't interfere because it's many hours for the child. So he's 4 years old. He was like 4.5 when we started looking for the services. We had to get everything situated with insurance, all that stuff, right? So finally we're like, okay, we're ready. Let's do this. So I started calling places around, and almost every place that I contacted was, I'm sorry, we're only working up to children that are between 2 and 3. You can call this place, call them, like, okay, yeah, we're not taking any new clients right now. We'll put you on wait list. Okay, call this place, same kind of thing, wait listed, or he's too old. So then it was like we've hit a wall because we don't know what to do. So it was 6 months after he was diagnosed, I called his psychiatrist again and say, hey, so these are the places that I've called that you recommended, and they're, this is what they're saying. She's like, why? Why are they saying that? Like, any age should be the age. Why? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've called every place here that I know of, that I've looked on Google, called every single place, and I marked it off. So she gave me a couple other places, and this was 2019. And then she was like, okay, call these couple places. So then we were calling. We were getting calls back saying, okay, yes, we have, let's go ahead and get this going. And then COVID hits.
Uh-oh, yeah.
So COVID hits, and then there's no services for anyone. So they're not doing any more home services, no client, no intake, no nothing, because you just can't right now. We don't know what COVID is at this point. I mean, it's just, here it is. Everything's shutting down. So there's definitely no in-home. There's no facility. So we're like, okay, now what? So then we wait and wait and wait. And then it's like, and then he's still in school. And I'm happy that he was still in school, because the recommendation was us to put him out of school and just focus on ABA. But I'm happy that he stayed in school, because at least he was getting speech and getting teached at school, you know, getting his education, learning as much as he could. And so that was great. And then October of 2020 comes, and a company contacted me. Yes, we're taking clients. You know, it's starting to open up. You know, we'll do in-home. We'll just have to do tests and everything. We're good. So I'm like, great. So we get in. They come and do the orientation. Everything is good. He's accepted into the program. They see it. They accept the diagnose. Yes, he's going to receive it. It's going to be great. I'm like, great. They're like, hey, we're going to run the insurance. It takes about 25 days, and we'll get back to you. About the 20th day, they contacted me saying that they're closing their Milwaukee facility.
What?
I'm like, oh, my God. Oh, my goodness. Like, really? I was so hurt. Like, oh, we were so close, so close. So then they referred us to a couple other places that we contacted. So here we are, square one. Doing all over again. The next company came and did the same thing, orientation kind of situation, and was like, you know, we'll go back, run all this information, and then, you know, we'll get back to you. So like a month goes by, I didn't hear from them. I call, and they're like, well, you know, because of COVID right now, we're not taking new clients. I'm like, oh my goodness. So that means that he's not even waitlisted? No, we can't have a wait list, because we just can't. So we're not taking new clients, but you can call back in 3 months, and then we can put you on. I'm like, are you kidding me? And now it's just like draining and just, you know, I'm at a loss. I'm like, there's no other places. I've called everywhere now. I don't know what to do. So then I joined a autism group.
Support group?
Yeah, support group on Facebook. And I wasn't very, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't very active. I was just basically reading stories and, you know, liking posts and agreeing, like just kind of, oh yeah, this is what I'm going through. I need this. And just reading what other parents are doing. And then the question was asked by another parent saying, where are you getting services from? And then parents were in there not writing down where they were going. I've never heard of these companies. So I'm like, let me try these companies.
And they're local.
Yeah, they're local. So, you know, there was like, from my Google search, I was only able to find like 10 to 15 places. And with that group, it opened up to additional like 20 places onto the 10 to 15. And I'm like, oh, and it's like, they're a little bit further out, not like more like Oak Creek, you know, Waukesha, Pewaukee, kind of like that, but still enough where I'm willing to drive and they can find someone to come to the house. So then I started looking. And then we finally got in. So
Good.
At 6 years old, though.
Last year.
Yeah. So we just started last year.
Let me ask you, because that process is a little different than how we did it in La Crosse.
Mm-hmm.
Did you approach Milwaukee County at all?
No, I didn't approach Milwaukee County at all.
Okay. So everything is done through the agency that's providing services, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because
everything we're receiving, yes.
Okay. Because how we did it in La Crosse, and it might be from county to county that might do things differently, but when we did it in La Crosse, everything's funneled through the county. We did the children's waiver. We did the functional screening, children's functional screening. I'm assuming he got that done, right? So that was a county that came out to do it, wasn't it?
They came in to do like an assessment at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the county. Okay. All right.
Because it was a county worker. Yes.
Okay. So the process for those that are listening is that usually the county comes. You approach the county comes out. They do a children's waiver. A children's functional screen, which determines eligibility. Because in order to be in the waiver, you have to be you have to have a diagnosis, which is important, and you have to be financially eligible, right? For you guys,
yes.
right? So that's what happens if you're not financially eligible. And Mater and I, we're probably going to have a podcast about services in the future so that parents can kind of navigate, not just kids with disability, but adults with disability, because we both work in that field, is that to navigate it.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's hard.
I mean, it is hard because to just go and easily just get distracted or get lost and say, I'm done for tonight, and then just never go back.
Yes.
Because it's just like, oh, forget it. I don't want to deal with that. Yeah, it's hard. And the county worker came out. The only time they came out to assess is when they assessed it for the birth to 3 program, because that's a county.
That was it.
Yeah, that's the
they
only
didn't
time.
come back afterwards.
No, they didn't come back afterwards.
okay.
Yeah. So then it was a little different. And I think it's just because like I just didn't know where to go.
Okay.
Like if someone would have said, hey, you should contact Milwaukee County, I'd be like, oh, okay, let me contact Milwaukee County because I don't know where to go.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a lot of times with parents that have to go through all this is because there's so many things that we have to do. We don't have guidance on where to start, and that's where you're at. You're just here. You're Googling. That's where I'm at. I'm Googling, and I'm like, so this person, wrote a thing here saying that they did this, so I'm gonna try that, and that's how a lot of things start. Is because you're looking for some kind of guidance, and you're just kind of going off of what you can relate to.
That's mind-blowing because Milwaukee is such a huge county that you would think that would be a lot more organized.
Yes.
But it's not. It's disorganized, at least from how I'm hearing it.
Yeah, so. I mean, so that's just like how I'm looking at it, because it would have been like, hey, so now that he's diagnosed, what you should do is you should contact the county, and the county will walk you through this, is what you would think, right?
Correct.
And maybe that is the way, but that's not what
your experience
was. My
was.
experience was. Yeah. So I can't speak for everyone else, and maybe they're like, oh yeah, you should have just did that, and did they tell you to do that? I'm like, well, they told me many things, so this is the route I went. Maybe I went the wrong route.
Correct. And and as a parent, you have to figure out so many things that's going on.
And what works best for you.
Correct.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I wish you two could have called us, and Peter and I could have at least would have at least made it a little easier.
Yeah, and then which is good to know now, because I mean, we didn't even know then that you guys had resources that we could have taken advantage of.
Hey, would you be okay if I list your information?
Yeah.
If parents that have any interests in contacting you?
Yeah, I mean, if they contact me and if they want, that's fine, but I'm not the type to contact anyone.
Okay.
So yeah, if they have questions and they just kind of, in
your process.
Yeah.
And whoever's listening, if you feel like you need to know the process, you can contact me also, because I've gone through it. Obviously, I worked the field, and so anybody that's interested in knowing can contact me.
Yeah,
also.
Definitely.
Great. So,
anyways,
so let's talk about now that he's getting services.
Yeah.
That's a whole different.
It's like, wow. Okay. So when he was in school, when he was 4, he was in K4. I had a IEP meeting with his teachers, and I remember his speech teacher was like, well, he's not saying a lot of words, and okay, so he's reading. Oh, he can read. We know that. And in my mind, I'm like, he can't even speak. How is he reading? Like, I'm whatever speech therapist. That's how I felt. Because he's not doing any of this at home. And then one day, I was writing a text message, and he was standing behind me, and he was reading my text message. He was reading it in my ear. I can hear him say, hey, you need to stop and pick up. And he was like, hey, you need to stop, pick up. And in his words. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And then he kind of walked away. So that I went and got our big easel, and I was like writing down words. I'm like, could you read this? And then I wrote down cow, and he was like, cow. And I'm like, okay, can you read this word? And I spelled that out. It was like cat, and he was like, cat. Because the way he speaks is he sounds the word out with how the sounds of the alphabet is. So that's why when he speaks the word, it's not fluent.
Yeah, it's a smooth pronunciation of the word.
So instead of saying cat, he's saying cut. So he's making each sound of the letter. So that's how he reads and he talks. And so I was like, okay, let me test him. So I wrote down ambulance. And I'm like, sound this out. He's 4 years old. And he's like, ambulance.
He did.
Yeah. And I'm like, this kid can read so well. He may not understand the word, but he can read it because he can sound out the word.
At 4.
At 4 years old. He was 4. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was telling everyone, everyone came over. I'm like, guys, any word. Give me a word, any word. Yeah. I'm going to write it down. They're like, alligator, wrote it down. He's like, alligator. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, oh my God, this is where that. so smart, you know, that he's getting it. And I'm like, oh my God. Like his dad's like, I'm like, yeah, the speech therapist is like, he can read. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, lady, you're crazy. But no,
But
like,
didn't they tell you that he could do that? Didn't they communicate with you? Or no?
They told me that he can do it, but he doesn't do it at home. So when she
Oh.
said it, I was like, no, he can't do that. So then when later I found that out, I was like in awe. I was like, whatever you guys are doing at that school, it is working, because he's on it. He can read, he can spell, which is going to be very helpful for him once and if we get the communication device for it's the AAC device, the outcome communication device. So once he gets that, it'll be great because he can type in what he needs. And they're like, yeah, well, yeah, we told you he can read. And I'm like, oh, I didn't believe you guys, because I was like not giving him enough credit, you know, like that he could do that.
The waiver covers that.
So okay, so now back to the waiver.
Yeah, because when you're telling me all these things, my social worker mind comes in. I'm like, you know what, you can do this and this, you can get this service and that service.
So then he is now in therapy through a great company, and they do in-home therapy. And his BCBA, which is his therapist, she was like, why are you not on the waiver? And I'm like, and I explained to her the story, because we haven't even been on the waiver.
Remember, seriously? I thought you were on the waiver already. Okay.
Remember, I told you that I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't need a ramp. I don't need bars. This is basically what they kept saying. She goes, there's so much more resources. Why are you not? And I'm like, well, I don't know. So then she advocated for me, she was so great. And I told her, because I don't know what to say. I don't know how to get in. So she was like, I got you. So she contacted her.
Nice.
She contacted someone that worked for Health, which is what we are on. And then she was like, hey, mom's trying to get onto the waiver. What do we need to do? So they're like, oh, okay. So where is she at? We're like, nowhere.
She hasn't even started yet.
We're nowhere. So like, okay. So as you know, there's a wait list. But let's get her on. I'm like, yeah, get me on. So then she was able.
Wait, there's a wait list.
Yeah, to get
the children's waiver.
Yeah, just to get like the interview.
Wow.
Yeah. So then she's like, okay. So I mean, if any groups that you're following, you can just see people like, we've been waitlisted for like 7 months. We don't know what's going on. So it was a couple months, maybe it was 1 month, and then they contacted me saying, hey, they called and said, okay, we need the information, because now we're going to send your information to the person that's going to do your interview. Mm-hmm. And then it's the step that gets you in to see if you're approved. And then once you're in, then you get to work with your social worker. I think that's how that goes. So then that was quick. I mean, it was like they gave me the information. I called, I set the appointment. They called me, set the appointment. I did the interview like 2 days later. And then they're like, okay, so now there's like a 45 to 50-day wait for that social worker to call you to get things going. But we'll call you to let you know if he's accepted, which he should be, because he has a medical diagnose that he's autistic. So, and sure enough, like a week later, that person that I called, she called me and said that he's in, he's good. So now you have to wait 45 days to 50 days before this person can call. And then we just got the call to say, hey, I am the social worker that works for so-and-so company. We need to talk, because now it's basically now another interview conversation that we need to have to see what kind of services he can get. So that's where we are.
Right now?
Yes.
So you haven't officially received the waiver yet?
No, not yet. So we are just at that point of getting that last interview to see what services we can get.
But you're getting in-home therapy also.
Yes.
So who's paying for in-home therapy then?
His, the insurances. Medicaid is.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have Medicaid for him. Yes.
Wow.
So yeah. So that's and also another thing with not being able to get services is because not a lot of places was taking Medicaid. So then they're like, oh, right now we're not taking Medicaid, so then we can't get him in. That's kind of like some of the steps too that was kind of frustrating. Is, oh my goodness, like, okay, like what do we do? We need to get private insurance, and that's what a lot of people was doing. They were paying a lot of money out of pocket to get private insurance to hit those deductibles, even though the services is still covered. You have to hit your deductible. So then, they're getting that because they just can't get anywhere with just having the Medicaid. It was like Medicaid was doing, they had to do secondary. And that's just how the company is. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, hey, right now we can't take it. If you can't take it, you can't take it. I get it. it's fine, but I have to find someone else. So that's where we are. So then we don't have any kind of waiver assistance now.
Okay. You will.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're on there and we definitely will. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick. I know you have to go.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine.
So quick. Can you explain how in-home service is for those who obviously who's never experienced it? It's pretty intense, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, he gets a lot of hours. I mean, he does school as well. So they recommend for any child, the recommendation is always like 20 to 25 hours a week.
In the home
or in clinic.
Oh,
so depending on the company you go with, if they have in clinic, like the company that we have they don't have a Milwaukee clinic. So they have just in-home techs that come in and do the therapy in the house. So there's other facilities, there's other companies that have facilities here that you can definitely do half and half or all in facility.
So how many hours a day? Obviously you determine as parents how many hours depending on your schedule, because it can be very time consuming.
It is.
Right?
Yeah. It is very time consuming. It's about balancing. So, and I think this is why a lot of companies want to start them young, because they don't have school and they don't have anything that is taking from them. So they're just all ABA or all that particular therapy. So then they're able to do 40 hours if they need to, 30 to 40 hours if they need to get those hours in to get them mastered of whatever they're doing. So my son's company recommended 25 to 30 hours. It's a recommendation, of course. And then it's like, what can we do and what can the school do? Because he has to go to school. I mean, by law.
So the school hours count towards that 25 to 30? No, that's separate.
Yeah, so that's separate. So right now, my son is receiving about 22-ish hours.
At home?
At home. So he has day and night therapy. So it alternates, and then he goes to school every day. So he has one full day of school, and the other days he goes to school for like 5 hours. So then it's like not a half a day, more than half a day, but then he's able to do all his work, and then he gets to come home and start therapy.
Okay.
So that's something that we've worked out with the school. So then that works. And it just depends on your district, your school, and how they allow this situation to happen. Sometimes it's like when they can't come out of school. They have to do all day school and an all day therapy.
Man, that's intense.
It just depends. And my son gets overwhelmed very easily. So even on tough days where he has school and what we call double day therapy is he'll have an afternoon session and he'll have a night session.
Wow.
So they'll come in like 11:30 to 2, and then they'll come back again from 4 to 7. So he'll have and it's late days, like 7 o'clock. So now he's a kid. He just wants to relax. And it's hard for him. So then some days he lashes out. He's aggressive and he's mad. Yeah. So those are long days for him. So that's what it looks like now. And his therapy, the therapy that we received, the ABA, there's so many types of therapy depending on your therapist. His therapy is play-based. So they do a lot of play-based, and they're working on focusing skills, attending skills, behavior skills, communication, chores, day-to-day tasks, that kind of stuff, to just get him to kind of get that fundamental skill of being independent and being able to do things functionally. So that's kind of where we are right now. We've only been in therapy for about 6 months.
Okay.
And we've seen a tremendous change, behavior, functions, skills. I mean, it's just basically everything he already had, hone in and more focus.
How many years is he supposed to be getting in-home therapy?
It depends. It just depends on the child. It could be 1 year. It could be 7 years. It just depends on what your goals are and what therapy can provide.
Okay.
So if your child needs 7 years of ABA therapy and they're going to allow it, you can have up to 7 years. It just depends on what your child needs and what they master out. So if they're like, okay, this is all we can do, and he's at his full potential,
and that's it,
that he wants to be at, because it's not forced, then because they want to weed out. They want to kind of not be there for him because they want that. They want to make sure that their therapy is working. So, in this case, and I even talked to his therapist, we had the conversation. I asked her, I said, well, how does it look? Like, how do you feel? Like 1 year, 2 years? She goes, it just depends. I mean, yeah, he can definitely, if he's doing great, he could be done in a year. But if you feel you need us here, we could be here for as long as you need, and his team, they're great. They're absolutely great. They listen to me. They work the program on what I need and what I want for my son, because he's my son. I know what his strengths are, and I know what he needs the most help on. So I'm not going to work on this because I know he can already do it. I need this. So then they work the therapy, the program around what's best for him. Okay. So it's all individualized.
I would suggest, when you do get the waiver, ask the social worker, ask the people that's in charge of the waiver, how many years will the waiver cover in regards to services.
Yeah.
It might have changed, because when I was working La Crosse, they only cover up to 3 years of in-home therapy.
Okay.
So that would be a great question to ask them, because they might just say, okay, well, we'll cover 3 years, and then the rest you have to go back on whatever insurance, or you might have to pay out of pocket or whatever. So that's a great question to ask, to make sure you know for sure how much they're going to cover, because the waiver is a public funding, and the ABA or the agency you go through, it's private, right? Correct? Yeah. And so they're going to, to me, they're going to want to make sure that they're going to provide the max amount of service. But for you as a parent, you want to make sure that everything's kind of covered.
Yes, exactly. So then, if they're telling me 3 years, then we need to get as much as we can out of those 3 years until we can figure out what we're going to do, what's the next steps are, which is where we're trying to see now, is like after ABA, what's next? Like, what do we do? Because he doesn't get OT, he doesn't get PT, and we're working that into therapy. So they're kind of doing their kind of own kind of OT, PT, but he's still receiving speech at school, which is great. Okay. So that's kind of the services that we are at right now.
If you ever have any questions regarding services, let us know. Because after children's waiver is adult long-term care, and that's what my wife and I, that's what we do. I've covered the children, she's covered adult, and so when your son transitioned to be an adult, that's a whole different process you have to go through also.
I heard that it's like its own thing. Like, you're stressed out now, you're gonna be stressed out then too.
I'm not sure how the process is gonna be when he turns an adult.
But when he turns 11 adult, years from now.
Let us know. I mean, we can tell you. I mean, I can talk to you after the podcast.
Yeah, like I said, it's guidance. Just saying, hey, this is what you need to do. I mean, that's kind of what we need the most, is just that. Like, where do we start? Yeah, like I'm pretty sure once we kind of phase out of this, and he's in become an adult, they would say, okay, so your services for a child is no longer, so these are the steps you can need to do.
So before we end off, all right,
I know there's still so much more. Do you have questions that we can definitely power through this?
No, I do, but I want you back again if you're okay, because I'm going to check in maybe a year from now, see how your son's doing, 6 months from now, see how your son's doing. And so, but for those that are listening, this is a long-term commitment.
It is.
It's not something that you give them a magical pill, or you go Onay or something and it goes away. This is a lifelong. Carries into adulthood. After parents like us, after we leave this earth, they're going to continue to deal with it. You have kids. He's not the youngest, right?
No, he's the oldest.
He's the oldest.
Yeah, and he's our miracle baby.
Oh.
So we were trying for 10 years, and then we got pregnant out of luck.
Yeah.
So it was, and of course that was also so hard to say, what, my miracle baby? But yeah.
And then you have your other kids.
Yeah, I have two other.
And the other kids, again, long-term, they're going to be there for him.
Yes, so. And this is something that my daughter is 5 and my youngest is 1. And even my 5-year-old right now, we've already hey, if you need to be his voice, you can be his voice. And she's like, yes, mommy, and this is stuff that you teach your children, to be kind and to understand. And she's doing such a great job.
Good.
At 5 years old, like, yes, mommy, I got it, and she sticks up for her brother. And, and even though they fight all the time and they're siblings, and of course they do that, but she's still like, don't mess with my brother kind of situation. And she's 5. And we're teaching her this because we know that she also needs to be so strong, because, he needs her to be strong for him too. Yeah, and she's like, she's right now she's a child and she wants to do everything like mommy and be strong, but I think that just teaching them right now at a young age just to be kind. I mean, even like when we came out to our family and told our family about this whole Emerson's diagnosis and him being autistic, we wanted to, and I urge this to all parents. We did it because we wanted them to get educated on it and to understand it, that we're going to need help and that they also need to support us and have our back and understand it, so they can also advocate for my son when we're not there.
Correct.
And to teach their children to understand and not question, like, what's wrong with him? He doesn't even talk. We don't want to play with him. We don't want, and of course, my nieces and nephews are not like that at all. But it's that education for you to spread awareness to people around you, so they're aware of it. So that if you're not always there and they have your child, you feel that they're safe with that person because they're educated and they'll be able to advocate for them and speak for them because my child can't right now. So, and that was like one thing that we did. And when we had that conversation, it was very hard. And then one of the questions was said, why did you wait so long to tell us? And it said, well, we basically found out. And then I felt into that denial stage.
Yeah.
And, but then now is the time that I feel like I'm strong enough to talk about it and answer questions, because I also need education. And so I can answer your questions if you have it. When you're asking me, like, what did you see in him that you felt that he had it? And I could tell you and say, and this is what we thought and this is what we did. And then I also want you guys to be able to see him at the therapy. And they have, in just a few months, they've seen such a change in him. And of course, because they don't see him every day, that's what makes me feel that this is working. Good. Like ABA is working for us. It may not work for everyone, and I will tell you that, but it's working for us. And Good. I think that just give it a chance. And if it doesn't work, then you as a parent can find guidance in another way to help your child, be the best version of them. Because I feel like, his therapist said to me that her child said to her, like, mommy, you were, I was picked for you and you were picked for me. I feel like this is the same way. Like, he picked me to be strong for him, and knew that I would do whatever it takes, because I haven't given up. And I haven't. I mean, I've done everything I can, and I feel like, it's made me a better person. He's made me a better person, a more patient person, a more loving person, just to be more compassionate about everything around me, because, like, stuff that you just didn't know about, you just know so much about now, and to be able to spread that. And I feel like he chose me because of that, and I love him. And I always say life would be so different without him. Like, I couldn't imagine it without him, even though we go through so much. And then some days are very hard, and I'll tell people, all parents out there, some days are so hard, it's overwhelming. I cry in the shower, I cry to sleep, because it's so overwhelming when he has bad days, and as a parent, you can't do anything. Sorry, I'm so emotional.
It's okay.
And it's okay to cry. It's okay to be overwhelmed, because this is your child. And you should feel that way, because it's not always rainbows and unicorns. And I just want, parents to be out there that they need that support. They need that. And you need to be able to also let go, because it's overwhelming. If you can't, it's hard. You can't. Like I told my husband, like, I'm so tired of having to be so strong all the time that it's breaking me inside. But I still have to be so strong, And he's like, but we got this together. Tell me what you need. I'm trying to help you, but you're always like, you got this, but let me do it with you. So that support, and that's why I said spreading it, letting people around you, the people that love you, that loves him, know, so they can also help you, because it's a lot. It's overwhelming, but I wouldn't change it for anything, never. Because it's my son and I love him, and I would do whatever it takes until the end of it, because he's worth it.
I think one key word that I got out of that was you have to advocate for him.
Yes.
advocate, just like what I said earlier, intervention.
Yeah.
Because after you do the intervention, you have to advocate now.
Yes.
And I think you said it perfectly.
Yeah, and then that's how it is. And I feel like parents, if you see signs, don't ignore it.
Yeah.
Early intervention is so crucial. And I would continue to say that, like, you know, I don't regret how things happen. I just felt like it happened the way it happened just because I couldn't help it. It was out of my hands. Mm-hmm. But if I could have and had him in therapy at 2, I would have 100%. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, you as a parent, you see the signs and you know in your gut, but the denial kicks in. But you have to trust your instincts and know that your child cannot speak for themselves right now because they don't really know. Like, to them, that's them. But you need to be able to see the signs and do early intervention in any form, no matter what it is. Something is always better than nothing. Doing something about it is always going to be better than nothing, because sitting around just letting it happen is just going to get worse. I mean, even though we're in therapy, we're doing everything that we're supposed to do, we're still seeing regression. And that's like the hardest thing about, you know, children that have autism, is that they have regression because it's all like memory based. So they're like, oh, now I don't really want to do this, but, you know, and it's hard, and you need that to kind of build those back up. I mean, we've seen in his behavior, we've seen regression, but there was times where he was super aggressive, where he was hitting me like so much all day long. And this is where days I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed because you don't know how to redirect it, because you're clueless to it. But him being in therapy and the therapist teaching me how to help him redirect, how to reinforce his good behaviors so bad behaviors don't happen, helping him being able to communicate and talk in his words and letting him know, has helped us. I mean, I can even remember like the last like session that we had that he like hit me. Like, and that's why I tell people, like, that's great. I know it's sad to say that, like, oh, my son hasn't hit me in a while, but it's like, wow, he hasn't hit me in a while. That's great. And now he's able to talk to me and tell me what he wants, because a lot of it came with frustration of not being able to communicate, you know, because communication is so important, super important. So
that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
there's a lot of stuff. Yeah,
there's so much to it, and I feel like this is my journey, and this is what we go through, and everyone else's journey may look the same, or could be different.
Could be worse,
yeah,
too.
It could be worse. It could be definitely worse, where, you know, a lot of some children that are autistic, you can't even touch them.
Correct.
Yeah, and be near them, you know, and they have horrible meltdowns, and it's hard as a parent. And now we can, like I said, we weren't taking him out anywhere because we didn't know how he would be throwing tantrums, being
in public.
Yes, it was hard. And since therapy, we've been able to go out as a family to go have breakfast. And he takes social stories very well, which are stories of what's happening, is what social stories are. So, hey, we're going to go to a restaurant, write down, hey, we're going to a restaurant today. You're going to be a great boy. This is what you're going to do.
Before we go. So
we read him the story, and he gets it. He's like, oh, yeah. And then when he gets there,
yeah.
everything connects to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, so when I'm here, I need to be on good behavior. Okay, I see that. I got that, Mom. I got you. You know, and I see that connection that you can see in his eyes. And then so we've been able to, you know, take him bowling. We went bowling. That was interesting. But he did so well, which we would never have thought to take him before, because he's just all over the place. You know, like, we're always afraid that he's going to take off. And now since therapy, he's learned to not elope as much.
Was he eloping before?
You know, like just at home. And sometimes like when we were outside, he would kind of like take off. But then now it's like a lot better. He's listening now, you know.
You know, there's devices for that too.
Yeah. So that the Waiver
Waiver will pay for, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you ever have any behavior, anything that you're going through, let me know. I might have some things that I've already done with my other job, like even with sensory stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Or like for example, I know the more extreme behavior is I had a child who digs. He'll dig his feces. He'll throw it.
Oh God, I heard
he'll
stories.
Smear it. He'll eat it.
Yeah.
And there's people out there that there's not a particular product. You just have to approach someone who can sew it, and they sew you certain clothing so that kids won't do that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, those are extreme behaviors. But again, if you have any questions or like, hey, we're going through this. Do you have any idea? Let me know because I might have something.
That.
So
yes. I mean, that's great because and it's so good to know because like he goes through things and he has sensory needs. He's sensory seeking is what he does. So he loves to feel it on his feet. I mean, he loves like we felt like a lot of the hitting. Yeah. Yeah. These stress balls are awesome. You know, like he is always like a heavy footed because he likes it on his feet, the sensory on his feet, his hands. He's always like looking to hit something because he just likes to feel it. So he'll hit the window. But now he's able to kind of like, oh, I can seek that in other things. Like he'll do the stress ball or he'll come ask for us to kind of like rub his hands.
Okay.
So he's able to kind of communicate that instead of lashing out, hitting walls, breaking windows, you know, because, you know, that happened before where, you know,
that's amazing because I think to me, like when I was, that's kids, that's their way of communicating. Yeah. They didn't know how to. Yeah. That's how they do it.
Because he can't communicate
but now he does.
Wants. So now he's able to.
Yes.
Those behavior issues, that wasn't even a behavior issue, but it was to you because it's like you're lashing out what's going on. To him, that was his way of communicating.
Yeah.
But the way we looked at it it's behavior.
Okay.
But it's not. It's just him. I can't communicate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's so.
I'm so happy to hear that things are working.
It is. Things are working. We're 100% pro ABA. We are excited to see what they have in store for us for the future of Emerson's journey. That's my son's name, Emerson. I mean, he's a smart and 7-year-old boy that is mischievous just like any other kid.
Hey, listen, if he becomes a genius, you better let me know, okay?
I will. I mean,
a mathematician.
No, I'm not going to let you know. You're just going to hear it.
I know.
You're going to hear it. Like, that's my nephew. Yeah. Cool. No, he's great. And then, he's just like the engineer in him, like Daddy always say, he takes things apart to put it back together. He has infatuation with things.
And that's the thing about kids with autism. Yeah. Their cognition declines in certain area, but it heightens in other areas.
So he's able to take apart a vacuum cleaner and then be able to put everything back together. And then we're like, so he does these things where he takes things apart and he puts it back together. We're like, what is he doing? And it's like no thought. Like his teacher's like, he found something in this ramp that I had at school and he fixed it.
Wow, yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, oh yeah, okay, bud, all right, I see you. So we always say things like that. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And I am so proud of him and how much he's grown and how much he's learned. I'm super proud of him, and I'm proud of us, being able to do this with him and him allowing us to do it with him. And I think that, you as a parent, you have to support them in every way they need. So now that he's in therapy, it's him doing his therapy and we're supporting him in whatever he needs, and you have to be able to advocate for your child and tell them exactly what you need. And you can't just sit there and let things be. Even in therapy, just don't let them run it. If you want something, you have to voice it and let them know and let them help you. Like they help me so much with IEP meetings. That's, another thing is individualized education program at school. And, I was always like, yeah, that sounds good. But then working with them, they're like, you can get so much more out of this. Like you can get so much more.
Yeah, I have stories about going to IEP meetings.
And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know that. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, of course. But, and I also get that, there's only so much resources that public schools can provide.
Correct.
And I get that. And that's why I'm not like a person that's like pushing it. But I feel like at the end of the day, we all want what's best for the child. So even if I'm asking, if you can't give it 100%, I just want you to try, and then I think that we are his team at school and my team at home. It's a great balance and it works for us. And I'm loving his team. We're doing great. So yeah, I mean, there's so much more. I know that we haven't even they made a dent in this conversation.
I know.
Seriously.
And I can go on forever because I have a lot of experience in it. Yeah. So what we're going to do is I'll have you back in, I don't know, whenever you're free. Yeah. But let's wait a few months, 6 months to a year, and I want to see how Emerson is doing. Yeah. Emerson, correct?
Emerson, yes.
I'm assuming he's going to do a lot better.
Yeah, we're going to, we can definitely.
And if your husband's willing to come in?
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely, there's some certain things that he says, it just like hits me like, wow, like, dude, you're right. Like, I can't believe you said that. And I always feel like he lets me kind of, like I said, like kind of run the show. I do everything. Which is fine, But when he has an opinion, I listen. I'm like, yes, yes. When you have an opinion and you want something done for the services, and you're like, I don't want this. I want this. I'm like, yes, let's do that, because I feel like it's almost like an outside perspective, because I'm seeing it every day, and then he's like, what's going on here?
And it's great that he's supportive also.
Yes,
you
yes.
know? And
So
unfortunately, there might be husbands out there that aren't supportive.
I know. I hear stories where they're just like, it's always the mom. And I mean, I used to follow this. Well, I am following this family on YouTube where they have a child that's autistic, and then their family actually like broke up because.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and they're back together now, but she had to actually like leave because she just felt like
she wasn't being supported.
Yeah, like he was there, but he wasn't there. And it took time for them to kind of get back into the groove of things, and their child is stronger now ever because they have a great support system. And I feel like you don't have to be together for that. You just have to have both supporting parents, because like I said, if I need a break, I need him to be able to step in and do it, and I don't have to sit there and relay everything over to him like, okay, this is what you're gonna do, this is what you're gonna do. I want him to be able to say, Mama, I got this. You do it. You know, we take turns doing therapy. We sit in therapy. I'm very involved in therapy. I hear that not a lot of parents are. They kind of just like let it go, like the therapy is happening.
But I thought you should be though.
Yeah.
Isn't that how it is?
Yeah.
Is that you learn it because when they're not around, you can continue it.
So we have like parent therapy conferences.
Yeah.
So therapist conferences. So they explain to you what we're doing, and we do it. And I think that's why it's working for him. Like, we stick with it. He is a visual learner, so we have visual calendars all over our house. So he knows what to expect. A lot of things that we're doing. So if he's showing behavior issues, we're implementing the same exact things. So it's consistent because he's very routine. And a lot of autistic children and a lot of autistic people, they're very routine. Mm-hmm. So when we break routine, we have bad days. So it's a lot. So yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I feel like we just made a dent. I don't even know if we even hit all the things that we wanted to talk about today.
But there's always next time.
There's always next time.
Cool.
I am here, to talk about it. I mean, I am glad to share our journey. I'm glad, and then whoever wants to reach out, I mean, definitely.
Yeah, give me your contact. Yeah. I'll put it in the description below.
I will.
And whoever wants to contact you or follow up with your experience or how to navigate all this I don't know, program, whatever.
And even if it's just supporting.
Correct.
Yeah, because we need it. We need the support. Just the vent. Like, you need to talk to someone. I'm here because I understand what you're going through.
Good.
And I think that's the hardest thing. And the parents that just kind of wants to hear, like why I did it. And that's something that definitely I am open to talk about, is why I did it. And like, that's a lot of people question that, like, why? What made you do it? And it's like that kind of step. Like, how do you take the first step after knowing? And I think that a lot of parents out there, they need that, because, my therapist, she's been doing it for 25 years. She's like, she's never worked with a Hmong family. Yeah. And she asked why. And I said, I think it's because we're in denial. Mm-hmm. It's easy. It's hard when you feel it and you want to, and no one's supporting you. No one around you supports you. And it's hard for you to say, I'm going to do it for my kid, when your spouse or your parents or your siblings are not supportive. So it's just easier to say, okay, we're just going to kind of let it be, and hopefully it just works. It's the kinks out, So I feel like that has a lot to do with it. So yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to me just to have questions, to vent, I mean, yeah,
you're here.
I'm here for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks
great.
for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm going to have you come in because, again, this is a conversation you and I, we're probably going to have after this podcast anyway. Yeah. And so, but listen, everybody, thank you for sticking with us up until this point. If you like what you're listening to, please subscribe, share, and click on that notification button. Thank you.